Hey everybody, welcome back to another review. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. Excuse me. Voice is a little strained today. I'm also fairly exhausted. Family's been in town, so you guys know how that goes. Especially for someone like me who's more of an introvert, it's very draining. um, but uh, Me and my cousins and my little brother Rocco, we went out to see Wish, which is the latest from Walt Disney Pictures. And before we get started with the review, you might notice that we are not all in the same room. Usually, any film that I do with my brother, we usually shoot the review afterwards. Um, the topic got fairly political towards the end, and uh, I felt that I didn't want that to be the central focus of the review. So I'm going to show you this photo that I think kind of puts in perspective how we felt about the movie. So here's the photo, and I think that kind of summarizes how we felt about the movie. Um, my cousins were a little bit more generous than I was, but just to set up the premise, I'll try my best to. Um, Stars Ariana DeBose, who plays Asha, who's a 17-year-old girl, which I'm not sure why, but the film makes a point of it to tell us that she's 17. Um, and she lives in a island which is controlled by Chris Pine, who is a sorcerer who can grant wishes. He takes people's wishes and he's able to grant some by his authority. And she thinks that everybody should be able to have their own wishes and all that sort of jazz. And she wishes upon a star, and then a shooting star, that star comes to life, and that star also has magical powers. And um, yeah, the word you're looking for based on the description of the film is convoluted, because um, the thing that the movie cares more about than anything else is a lot about the pushing of a certain message. And um, especially, it's a very politically charged environment. It's binding itself very heavily to progressive sensibilities. So there's basically Chris Pine's character, who I must say has a surprisingly spirited turn in this film. In terms of voice acting, it's a little more spirited than I would come to imagine. Um, Ultimately, like in terms of just what it's trying to be, it's about greed and selfishness, but it's packaged within a political representation where Chris Pine is this rich white guy, and there's these minority groups that band together to try to take down the rich white guy, and um, ultimately come back come back to acting on a selfish desire. Like the movie doesn't really end in a way that's empowering. It just kind of leads back to the same point as what was established. And it's like Chris Pine's character was also never really a bad person. They try so hard to make you think that he's a bad person, but he's really not. He has maybe some questionable motives, but ultimately what he's doing is actually really sound, and ultimately is like he's the representation of the societal system. It's like, oh, some people make it, some people don't. It's just that's how life goes. That's just how life goes. Some people can like I said before with Hollywood, it's like there's that 5% that can justify it, and then there's that 95% of you that will never justify it, because that's just based on careers and based on all this other shit. It's like, it's based on a lot of factors. And Chris Pine is meant to represent that sort of thing, and the movie makes it seem that that's a terrible thing and that everybody should have their wishes. Those wishes will not be granted throughout the course of the movie. I mean, no one's wish really does come true at the end of the movie. Um, So it's a very convoluted and very nonsensical, very thinly crafted and just blatant type premise. But more so than anything, it chooses to make it chooses to make corporate interest and self-indulgence top priority over setting up the rules of this environment, because there's a very strange inclusion of Disney stuff, like Disney characters. There's like a Peter Pan, literally Peter Pan, and there's people that look like Snow White and the Dwarfs, but they're not actually Snow White and the Dwarfs. And then at the end, like how the movie starts and how the movie ends is just one and the same with the Disney logo, with the castle and everything. It ends with that, and then there's like she becomes like the godmother or something like that. Like it's either a Disney fanboy's wet dream or a corporate wet dream. I'm not entirely sure how to define it, but it's definitely not consistent, and it's definitely not interesting, and it's definitely uh, it definitely leaves little to desire or care about, because it rushes out its ideas. Its ideas are also just so tiresome. I've seen this so many times this year. I'm getting tired of listening to this shit. Like, stop. Um, and for a budget of $200 million, I seriously doubt this is gonna make its money back. I heard it's like projections are like at 40, 50 million, which are pretty much nothing. Um, so despite what might be from Chris Pine, you get something that is just so disposable, so convoluted, has a weird corporate edge to it, um, and it just makes very little sense. And within that, I found myself having very little care, very little interest. And I expected that going in, honestly. I didn't find myself that curious about this. I thought it would just be mediocre. And it is, but it's it's also fairly annoying, So yeah, like I don't know. The more I talk about it, the more tired I get. So maybe it's just also just with family being here for 2 weeks, but I don't know. Um, but yeah, I found it very disposable, and honestly, I just could give a shit about it. Um, so yeah, it very much makes little sense, Um, and I think that it's just more interested in what it can put on screen, Disney wise. Maybe that's where the budget comes from, is all those like inclusions of Disney characters. But I just don't know. And it's like supposed to celebrate Walt Disney animation, but yet Zootopia, which correct me if I'm wrong, is Pixar proper. Zootopia. Oh no, it is Walt Disney animation. Oh, never mind. It is. I thought when it came out that it was Pixar. No, it is Walt Disney. Oh, I honestly thought that was a Pixar film for the longest time, but oh well, whatever. But yeah, it's more interested in presenting a catalog and presenting merchandise and presenting, like, this is something that you would play at Disneyland, not something that really is meant to be shown in theaters. Because as it stands, it's just so like tiresome and so convoluted and just careless. I have as much care as the filmmakers themselves had with making this story, which is pretty close to zero. So yeah, so was my thoughts on Wish. I was pretty bored, but yeah. So you guys want to know your thoughts on Wish if you guys have seen it? I highly doubt that a lot of you guys will see it, but just let me know if you guys saw it. It seems to have hit well for kids, but with a budget of 200 million, no way. I don't see that working out. So, but you guys want to know your thoughts on Wish in the comment section below. And that's gonna be it for me, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in, and until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.